filmmaker and musician Alicia J. Rose, and this is the MENOPUNKS podcast. Hello, welcome to the MENOPUNKS podcast. Andi Zeisler, senior culture writer at salon.com and also a lovely Portland person. So hi, Andi.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So everybody, you should be snapping in happiness because Andi is with us, and Andi is such a badass. I know you from forever ago when I, as a photographer, contributed to Bitch magazine. How many years ago? Maybe 50?
It was 17, oh and I remember this
Stop it.
Because I was on maternity leave and my kid is 17. And I remember being really bummed that we had gotten a grant from RAC to do that issue, to make it bigger and to to pay for some full color type stuff. And and then I remember hearing that you were going to do the cover, and I was like, God damn it, just stuck at home with a baby.
I know, right? All the FOMO really kicks in when there's diapers involved, especially.
Honestly,
that's hardcore.
That was like the one. That was really the one. I mean, I ended up working during maternity leave for so many reasons that are too arcane to get into. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where it's like when I think back on things that I missed, there's not a ton of stuff that I feel sad about, but that was when we were still fairly new to Portland, and I really wanted to know more people. So yeah.
Well, here you go. Just 17 years later, we can totally bro down or sis down. I don't know what it's called. But no, honestly, it's so funny. So you wrote an article recently. Tell the title of this article to folks, and I kind of want to talk about that. And talk about, first of all, that 5 different people sent it to me. So tell us the title of this article and kind of where it is and what it's generally about.
So I'm thinking about the title of the article, and I actually don't remember it because it's not the title that I chose. But it's like Gen X women are, I forget, are.
Okay, I've got it right here.
Classic
everybody.
I'm
going to help you out. So this is, I know, we'll talk about that too, but Gen X women don't have the bandwidth to figure out why they feel so terrible.
That was it. Yeah.
That's probably not what you wrote, what you wanted to call it, but that did come through. Like people understood that title.
Absolutely. And it's like, I totally, the title I proposed probably was not any good, but, and they love a Gen X angle because, then that they can tag it. And, but yeah, I mean, so I've been thinking about the piece because I've been suffering from this brain fog, for a while, but also I was diagnosed quite late in my adulthood, with ADHD. And that was in, probably like 7 or 8 years ago. So fairly late. And it wasn't anything. It wasn't like a thing where I'd had it my whole life and I felt like that explained everything. It really was more like, oh, this is a late onset kind of thing. And I didn't know if that was, I didn't know anyone else who had it. And then I started talking to people, and everyone, so many women I knew had been diagnosed late in life.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I pitched the piece because I was sort of like, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's menopause. I don't know if it's ADHD. My kid's dad had died, so I was having a lot of grief too.
Mm-hmm,
and then of course there's just the world, which is a shit show.
It really is a shit show.
I was like, there's so many variables here. But the ones I really wanted to pay attention to were like, is this menopause or is this ADHD? Because those are two things that can be sort of chemical.
I mean, it's a logical question. I think so many of us have asked that question. And I think there's a real sort of interesting take on ADHD in midlife, right? Because similarly, I was never diagnosed as a kid, but I certainly understood that I had it even in my 20s and 30s. And then in my 40s, I was like, oh my God, why is it so much worse? What is wrong with me? And I just thought, well, maybe this is just what happens. It just gets worse as you get older. And so many women and girls are just not diagnosed at all because it's based on a male standard of sort of, competency or whatever. Like it's all based on boys who are studied, not girls.
Well, because it presents differently in girls. And that, to me, that is interesting because, I didn't have problems concentrating when I was little, but I did have some of the hyper focus that is associated with ADHD in women, like where you just like lock in and you can't be distracted. And it's like I never saw that as a problem, but
same benefits.
Yeah, exactly. But it does, like, I struggled with procrastination for a long time, for sure, and that got much more intense in my 40s. And again, like without really knowing where that all came from, I got to a point where I was like, well, it's either ADHD or perimenopause, like from a physical standpoint. And I just kind of want to feel better. Yeah.
Have you, okay, I have so many things to ask you about and to think about, but, first of all, ADHD and perimenopause and menopause, I think is sort of this like total spelunk worthy topic because the thing, I don't know if you saw the big sort of news thing that happened recently where it was talked about how, in menopause and perimenopause, the brain eats itself.
What?
Have you heard that whole? Let's just start there, Andi.
That's one more thing to think about.
So it makes complete sense logically if you think about it because, the brain needs glucose to function. And with perimenopause and menopause, it's a reduction of dopamine and glucose and all these things that these hormones in our bodies give us. These hormones are like, basically the basis of our entire existence, right? Testosterone, estradiol, and progesterone. These are the things that give us life. And in perimenopause, it's like, woo! And then in menopause, which I'm firmly in, and I think maybe you're in-ish, we're not sure yet. It's like, it's all gone. It's basically complete hormonal castration. It's gone out of your body. And the brain, is smart, no pun intended. The brain is going to get what the brain needs. So the brain starts breaking down fat in your brain, turning it into sugar, into glucose so that it can survive. But the problem is you need your brain fat. It's not the kind of fat you can get rid of with a pill, motherfuckers. It's like the good stuff that's like making your brain all bouncy
like you
and
don't
like
want Ozempic for your brain.
No, but I mean, like taking all your hormones away is basically Ozempic for your brain. It can make you like have the brain fog. It can make you have difficulty with concentration, memory, application, that the zone, getting into that zone. For me, it's funny. I was just writing about this today on some random post I was doing, but I was like, oh my God, I love the zone. I love the lock-in. That is why I'm successful, frankly. You probably feel the same way. It's
exactly.
Like, if you can't concentrate, who are you?
Yeah.
So your brain, Andi, I hate to break the news, but is probably eating itself.
That's like the worst news. Because honestly, like I can kind of deal with my body breaking down a little bit. Like I can deal with all the physical indignities at the moment, but I need my brain, it's pretty important. And yeah, and I think there's a real sense of there's a real helplessness when like I can't remember a word or I can't remember someone's name. In part because it just feels awful, but also that was like my superpower for such a long time. Like I was like, my brother called me once the family zip drive, which is, when zip drives were a thing. That won't make sense to anyone, but yeah, like
hello, Gen X zip drives. Yes, this is, remember zip drives, Gen X? Remember?
Yeah, exactly. Like I was the person that people in my family would call to be like, hey, remember that restaurant we ate at one time where there was like, you know what I mean? Like I was that person. And it's kind of part of my identity to be someone with a long memory and someone who can be sort of counted upon to answer people's questions and things like that.
I mean, you're a writer. It makes sense that you would count on your words. It's a pretty straightforward thing. I mean, well, so here's the thing. So I can tell you from my own experience that I went through the same thing and I thought, oh, it's aging. I didn't really understand. This is like 2-3 years ago. there's not as much going on about hormones and HRT. We were still all laboring under the belief that it was going to give us cancer. So like the idea of even getting it was so far out of reach, and nobody would listen to you at all. And it was just not part of the conversation. So you just had to suffer. And I took like black cohosh and ashwagandha, anything I could get, ginkgo fucking loba, like anything I could get my hands on to like help me think again, because I love my brain just like you. I love hyperfocus. I mean, if we have this ADHD, if we had it naturally before our hormones went in the tank, then there are some good things. It's not all a bad thing. I mean, hyperfocus is amazing. Being able to multitask and multifocus on lots of things is amazing. Keeping all that information in your brain, amazing. And without it, I don't think we really feel like ourselves, But here's the thing. There's good news. I have good news for you. I know I just gave you really bad news about your brain eating itself, but I can tell you that you can have your brain back, and it's going to stop eating itself. And I can tell you my own experience, which is that once I started taking hormones, I felt a million times better. Micronized progesterone and estradiol are what are in your brain. It's the things that give you the dopamine. It's the things that give you the good feelings, the things that lubricate your brain and the rest of your body up and down. I don't have to get into specifics.
So
but
the things that you want to replace, like the things that,
yes,
when you're talking about hormone replacement, those are the things you want to get in there.
Yes. So there's three things. And I'm also taking testosterone, which is a whole nother ball of wax that I think really helps my brain health as well. And everybody's different. Like, the way your balance before you hit perimenopause and menopause was how much progesterone and how much estradiol and testosterone in your body is yours. I have no idea. We're not all the same at all. Some people just run hot. Some people run differently. We're all, it's a mix. It's completely shades of every single color and every single amount of dosage. Right. So, but like perimenopause is really hard. And I think that's when we start really feeling that real sort of dysphoria about who we are, the things we defined ourselves by, like our skills, our talents, your ability to be the human zip drive for your family. All of those things are who you are, right? So by taking these bioidentical hormones, which we can put a pin in getting them, that's another conversation, but by having access and also honestly truthful information about these hormones, which we don't have really in any large way, we are able to replenish our brains and our bodies with the literal sort of, building blocks of healing that help us rejuvenate the juiciness in our brains and our bodies all throughout our entire systems. And the brain is the first thing that comes back. Because you know what the worst thing is that affects the brain? It's sleep. And typically in perimenopause, your sleep goes to shit. Complete shit. It's a nightmare. And the first thing you're just like, why can't I sleep? Like if you can't sleep, your brain's not going to heal itself. That's just the bottom line. I mean, remember, I don't know if you were a bad girl back in the day like me, but I certainly had a lot of late nights drinking, and there were definitely some drugs and things like that. Not that I'd like to admit that, but it was the 90s.
Mistakes
before
were
they
made
put cocaine
across the board.
Oops, I'm not going to say I did cocaine, but once in a blue moon, like whatever. We were young. We just stayed out late. I was booking nightclubs,
they
musician,
used to call this
stay out late.
Snortland. I mean, come on.
Oh my God. I mean, I don't know if because we're a port town or what, but there was a lot of drugs here. Anyway, and that's before it was tainted with fentanyl. Okay. So it was the good old days in terms of illegal drugs. Oh my God, this is so depressing. But anyway, so, you'd be out all night, you go to bed, you just feel so pickled in the morning. Maybe you slept, maybe you didn't sleep, but the feeling, you remember the feeling in those days of just waking up, feeling so completely devoid of energy and feeling just so pickled and gross. Like that's, because you put yourself through hell with alcohol and drugs, but then in perimenopause, you get all of that pain with none of the fun.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been a drinker at all. And most of my drug use happened honestly in high school because I had older siblings. So I had sort of,
all right, fine.
I had been through it, but no, I absolutely I became a stoner for sure.
Thank God, Jesus Christ! I felt like I was on an island of badness.
No, I mean, and that's another thing. And I forgot to say that because I'm a stoner, I forgot to say that is also another thing that I very much worry about.
Like killing your brain with cannabis, basically.
Killing my brain with cannabis, or just, adding another pressure point to all these other things. Especially, because in some ways I need it. Like it really is one of the few things that works for anxiety, like especially like right in the moment. But yeah, I mean, I think about it all the time. I'm like, oh God, am I just making things worse? And so I've tried to, I've been
Yeah.
doing these like weed fasts for like, 2 weeks, a month, etc.
Wow. Well, I think it's good to challenge anything you consider to be an addiction in general. I mean,
Oh, for
I think
sure.
so too, but I gotta be honest, they're not gonna pry my weed from my cold, dead motherfucking hands. They're gonna find
Right.
my weed in one hand and my hormones in the other, and that's the end. And I'll have them till I die
Right.
unless I'm told something that really impedes my day-to-day life. But back to the other side, like where I hope you will be the next time we talk, if you choose to go down sort of the hormone rabbit hole. But dude, the difference I felt in my brain health, in my body health, in my sleep health. Like some of it was immediate. Some of it was within like 48 hours. I was like, oh my God, the hot flashes are gone. And I don't know if you're suffering from those, but that's just one. That hot flashes are vasomotor. Hot flashes are from the brain.
Yeah.
They're not from anywhere else. Like it's starting up here. It's an absolute like pure line from a hot flash to your brain eating itself. So know that. And if you're not having hot flashes, good for you. God bless you. But if you are, that's part of what happens. Some people don't get them. I got a lot of them, but those went away quickly, so fast. And then after that, my sleep came back. And then after that, like I just started feeling better and better. But my ADHD was still suffering. I was still dealing with it. It was still bringing me down. And this is before I had changed to micronized progesterone. And this is why I will tell anybody who talks to me, when you are pursuing hormones, you want to ask for specific things. You want to ask for estradiol, which is bioidentical, micronized progesterone, same. It matches exactly what's in our body. And there's other versions of both these things. There's a horse urine version called Premarin, and then there's medroxyprogestin acetate, which is the synthetic version of progesterone. You don't want those. Those are, I mean, there's certain reasons that you couldn't take regular hormones. You could take those, and they're not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But if you can get the chance to take true bioidentical hormones, they just, I mean, they're amazing. So those two things in balance, I mean, honestly, restored me back to where I was before in the way that I could now scare myself again with my hyperfocus, with being in that zone and locking in. I thought I was done forever. I was like, how am I going to make this movie? How am I going to live my life? I'm just saying that by taking those hormones and finally eventually finding like the optimal level for myself, it did take a while. I mean, I really truly feel like I have myself back. I have my brain back. I now am able to lock in and zone in, and I feel like myself again. That was really surprising. I like you really thought, oh my God, I've destroyed my brain with weed. What do I do now? Because it's the only thing that makes me feel better. It's the only thing that gets me out of the loop in my head of anxiety, of like, one thing that comes with ADHD is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Do you know about that? Have you heard about that?
Heard of it. I don't know that I've experienced it that much, but I definitely understand what it is. And yeah.
Well, it's, I don't know if you feel like this or not, but for me, it certainly came up again and again and again in my experiences, which is just taking the word of anybody with any control. Maybe it was someone I was dating who wasn't clear with me about whether they wanted to date me anymore, or a boss was going to give me a bad review, or a client I was working with in terms of getting feedback. Like I would just put myself through the ringer, going down a rabbit hole of fear and anxiety about like being rejected or being told it's bad or being told that, you know, I'm fired or whatever, broken up with, whatever it is. I would just like spin out every time. And then eventually, usually it was like totally in my head, and there would be a much like calmer answer. And oh no, I was an hour late because I had to be on the toilet. I mean, I don't know, like their reasoning was never like, you should be miserable.
Right.
You should be freaking out because I hate you.
Right.
It was like, you know, it's like, oh, I was eating a donut. Like it was like nothing.
Right.
So
And you build it
I
up in your
eventually,
head that it's like something huge. Yeah.
I mean, that's a typical aspect of ADHD, and especially with women, they found, which is really fascinating.
That's interesting because I have always had incredibly low self-esteem, and just because of my family. And so actually one of the lovely things about perimenopause has been just like giving less of a shit, especially about what sort of random people think. Like that's been wonderful. Like I wouldn't say, oh, my self-esteem is fixed. I still absolutely like beat on myself all the time. But taking away the need for like external validation in many ways is a huge like it's still a load off for sure.
It really is, you know, I mean, having that, I think just being in our 40s and 50s is just a whole different vibe, you know what I mean? And certainly we care so much less because like really, like how old do we have to be to stop caring, right? What I'm realizing now, the thing that's really exciting, once you sort of cross the hormonal optimization threshold is what I generally call it, you kind of realize that not only can you get back, but you can kind of get back to where you were before perimenopause, which is kind of insane. So what would happen? I'm just going to pose this to you, Andi Zeisler, culture and perimenopause and menopause writer at salon.com. What would happen if women who are in their 40s and 50s were able to find truth about hormonal care and get help like dudes get help at the gym with testosterone or through
Right.
Revive Health or whatever? They're constantly being fed 10 kinds of testosterone that are made for them. Well, by the way, there's 0 forms for women. What if we had free and fair, legally enshrined access to bioidentical hormones that weren't such a hassle to get and find out about, so that we at this phase of life, when we give no fucks, because that never changes, by the way, hormones or no, you still give no fucks, you just give less fucks when you feel good. You're like, hell yeah, I feel good, no more fucks. But what if we were living in a world where we could actually feel fucking fantastic now, during this part of our life, when you're now like, you're a fucking editor or, you know, culture writer and an editor at where you want to be in the world of writing. You are, you know, you have the skills, you have the resume, you have the kid who's almost out of high school, you have, you know, a world that you've built, a world that you'd like to enjoy. What if you could, you know, what if you could be the baller banging motherfucker that you are in every way, but with energy to enjoy it, right? With
Yeah.
energy to take it to the next level.
I think what's interesting is like every woman I know in their like late 30s, in their 40s, is absolutely kicking ass, but they all feel like they're constantly on the edge. And that's the thing. It's not necessarily standing in their way because they're trying, you know, they're doing everything they know how to do. Um, but yeah, the idea of like, well, what if that were easier? I mean, I think feeling better and things like sleep and not worrying and not having anxiety, that would be great. But we're also talking about like structural material realities. Women deal with so much of that, whether it's, you know, like a unequal, you know, distribution of labor at home, or whether it's, you know, having responsibility at work that, you know, you didn't sign up for. There's a lot of, you know, just bearing the sort of mental load of your family too is another thing, like having to be the person who's like, oh yeah, wait, I need to schedule my kids like doctor's appointment. Like this sort of constantly running list of things in your head um, contribute to all of that. So you know, I think so much of what we talk about when we talk about menopause and this information is the fact that it's all folded into uh, just a structural inequality and a refusal to sort of grant women the sort of personhood that that men of the same age have. And you know, so I feel like absolutely, yes, more women being able to identify these things, but that also the next step is, you know, making the change. And we all know how difficult that can be, especially now, because things are really
changing
just
the
like
system,
going backward. Yeah. But you know,
I do.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, finish what you're going to say.
Oh, now I forgot. This is just how I live
brain
now.
fog's good for something. I love it. Oh my God. Well, a couple things come to mind in what you said. Yes, the system is so fucked up and so broken, and it does need to change. But I mean, I'm going to be just like a cautious optimist for a second, or a cynical optimist, some kind of optimist. You can tell me which kind. But I really truly believe that like things have to go to total shit to be rebuilt and rebuilt the way they should be. And we are like kind of at rock bottom right now in society, especially in America. I mean, really all over the world, but we can speak to what we know, which is our country. And we have these like, you know, ass fucks in the manosphere suddenly in control. Whether it's the boomer manosphere or the Gen Z, or there's just this sort of, men's trying to take back from being woke and diversity and women and people of color. And, really, obviously, it's like the really loud, ugly white male death rattle that's going on. And they're seeing the world change around them, and they want to slow it down because there's not enough white fucking babies or something, motherfuckers. So they don't want to give us anything to support those babies or anything to like help us have them without dying or anything like that. They want to have more of them. They probably clone them like Tom Brady just cloned his dog, right? So they clone themselves. Imagine Donald Trump with like 80. Oh my God. Don't imagine it. Don't fucking imagine that. Anyway, that's people. I'm going to delete that. If I don't, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But like, things are fucked up. Things have kind of gone down to a low. But here's the thing. I really believe that there was purposeful, nefarious fucking intention in us being in this moment, asking the same questions finally that they were asking in like 2001. We're kind of now 23, 24 years later, back to then, asking a lot of the same questions, like, is hormone therapy safe? Can we take it forever? And just to like bring you up to speed on what we've been doing in the film is we've really been looking into the Women's Health Initiative study that happened in 2002, and the results that were released that broadly specified that hormone replacement therapy caused breast cancer, getting into the press and then getting into the Journal of American Medicine. And basically the overwhelming narrative ever since has been that, hormones are dangerous. You're going to get breast cancer. This thing that we said was going to help you till you died is actually going to kill you. So rip yourself off them. Doctors, take your patients off them. Ever since basically, like, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but in 2002, over 40% of people with ovaries, women, were hormonally optimized. They were taking hormones. That's a lot of women. We are still under 5% now. So many people left that zone and kind of just, roughed it out. That was just the way it went. And then the narrative of like, women can live long and live healthier, which was really the narrative in the 90s. Sidebar, I found an article from Time Magazine in 1993 you should read called The Estrogen Dilemma. And it was all about women are popping these hormones like candy, and they're so full of life, and they're getting them like anytime they can take them whenever they want. Is this okay for them to take till they die? Is this really what aging looks like? Can we age healthily with these things? Like, is this the world? Can we stop it? Like, that was really the narrative of this article in 1993.
Well, because when you think about 1993, it was a time when that was the sort of the first modern wave of like political correctness. You know what I mean? It was like, oh no,
Clinton.
Like people, like kids on college campuses are saying we need to expand the canon of literature to include, you know what I mean? That's
right.
Like, it was very like there was a huge fear of like multiculturalism. Like multiculturalism was that decade's woke. And there was also that was also, the Anita Hill, the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings. That was huge because it gave a name to a thing that so many women had experienced. And it also showed how few men really understood that was a problem. They're like, what do you mean I can't grab people's asses? That's just normal. And so I do think that like there was, there was after the sustained backlash of the 80s, the 90s was really when more people were talking about feminism. It was the year of the woman in Congress, I think, like in 1992. Oh, I absolutely like I don't want to go like all tinfoil hat and assume that all these people were like in a boardroom talking about like how do we get these, how do we tamp down these women like thinking that they can have stuff. But at the same time, I'm sort of like, I'm sure like I wouldn't put it past anyone, that like this country, part of why we're so obsessed with conspiracies is that this country has been the victim of like there have been conspiracies. Like information.
Actual conspiracies.
Actual,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like it happened before. It can happen. It can happen again. So yeah.
So you kind of blew my mind. I didn't realize that 1992 is the year of the woman. That is the year they decided to start the Women's Health Initiative study. That was the year that a woman was appointed for the first time to the World Health Organization. That was when Clinton was in office. That was when Hillary Clinton was everywhere. We know what happened with Monica. One day maybe I'll get her on this podcast. But a lot was happening, and then Riot Girl was happening, and punk was happening, and alternative rock was happening, and we were in our early 20s, late teens, and we were just like, this is who we were. We were coming of age into a world that was like powerful, and it was getting more powerful for women. We were just like, yes, we're taking over. We're all going to be president. We're all going to take over everything. This is the way it's going to be. But then in 2000, George Bush became president, and the tides turned from this sort of incredible upwardly mobile trajectory of women in culture, in business, in politics, to being like, how do we stop this from the Bush administration? And not only that, then 9/11 happened. And that really changed the temperature of the whole country to being like, screw women. It's all about terrorists now. How do we protect ourselves against terrorists?
But it actually was about women, because it was like, we need to be more patriotic. We need to be more domestic. Like there was a real sense of like reestablishing gender roles. Like I remember that was like post 9/11 was a time when like all these books about like the joy of keeping house came out. You know what I mean? Like there was a real sense of backlash that was very kind of deliberate, and that very much had to do with reestablishing men as masculine. Like we all remember George W. Bush in the stupid flight suit, saying mission accomplished.
Oh God.
But yeah, there was this, and again, it was a miniature backlash because of how the 1990s had really seen this uptick in, women doing stuff.
So I'm going to pull that now into 2002, because you're really nailing it. I do think the climate had really changed, especially after Bush, especially after 9/11. So 2002 rolls around. And this study, the Women's Health Initiative study, had 165,000 women in it. It was the biggest ever. I believe even still the biggest ever. And parts of it are actually still running. But Congress had authorized about $1 billion at this point on this study. And it was such a big deal when it began. It was like, of course, take all the money. But by 2002, the Bush administration, they were like, $1 billion. Do we have a narrative that is going to explain to people why we spent this money? Is there like a reason? Because, we don't, this is not look good. And here's the deal. The study got stopped short because a far outlying arm of it showed some uptick in breast cancer with women pretty much around the age of 65 to 75 who were smokers, who had all these sort of predetermined factors that went into the study. And they did find that it went up, and they were on hydroxyprogestin. There's all these other things that went into it that got them to this sort of new statistic. Well, this was one part of the study, and not every part, and not the main part of the study. And one thing to note about the study, it was all postmenopausal women over the age of 50. Which is a lot of women, 165,000 women over the age of 50 to like 90 or something, all taking hormones after they've been through perimenopause, after they were symptomatic. And what they wanted to know was, can they take them till they die? Is this the fountain of youth? Is this the secret to longevity? Is this the secret to aging well? Right? That's what they wanted to know. So that's why the study started. And when 2002 rolled around and Bush's Congress kind of started looking at the numbers, and they're like, we need a narrative that we can embrace that really helps explain this. Well, that's where things got really dirty pooling. That's where the conspiracy came into play. And what I have found out through talking to like actual scientists who were there at the Women's Health fucking Initiative, like actual scientists, people who were in the room, was that the entire press release and the entire Journal of American Medicine article was all basically written and done outside of the entire research team. They never had any input. I believe it was politically motivated to provide a narrative for Congress and for the Women's Health Initiative study to justify the money that was spent and to feel like they had done something important, because the actual results showed that women who were around 50, between 50 and 60 showed incredible benefits from it. And then women who were over 60 to 80 didn't show as many benefits, because it's been proven now that once you're off hormones for a long period of time, it's hard to get on them because your body's already eating itself. It doesn't want them anymore. It's figured out a way around them. So don't start them. It can actually create problems. But when you're younger and your body's like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It wants it. And that can do incredible rejuvenative things for yourself. So you've got like younger women doing well, older women not doing well. The result of that is nil. It's a zero net, right? Like there's nothing. Like, so the result is, it's good for some, it was bad for others. Sorry, you spent $1 billion. We already knew that. We already had that answer. So they didn't want that. They wanted something that was sexier. And it became this dude who ran the WHI with his admin team and probably some input from Congress. It became hormone therapy causes breast cancer. They took this one part of the study, pulled it to the center, and used that as their primary narrative. And the irony is they went to press first, and then they went to print. And any doctor that actually knew what was going on, who read the actual report, who got under the hood of it, could tell that that was maybe not really what was going on. But the predominant narrative in the public sphere was that it caused breast cancer. So it didn't matter. So overnight, women were yanking themselves off. Overnight, doctors were taking women off. He was on Charlie Rose. It was all over the news. It was the, New York Times headline. It was all about, HRT, hormone therapy causes breast cancer. And these poor scientists told me, Robert Langer, I've talked about him before in the podcast, they were standing there. They looked at the article. They're like, you cannot publish this. This is going to destroy women's lives. This is going to ruin people. This is going to kill people. This is going to, tank quality of life for millions of women. How can you do this? This is completely misleading. And they're like, well, okay, well, you can have 7 hours to change this up. You can, you can rewrite the first 2 pages, go for it. And they're like, oh, thank God, this is going to help, because this is terrible. This is going to ruin the world for everybody. They did it. They did their changes and ran them to the publisher. The publisher was like, why would you give this to me? It's already printed in warehouses. So it was literally a conspiracy that happened. The conspiracy was to take away all publishing power and all fact-based power from the scientists, from the people who actually did the work, and they put it into politicians' hands so they could go on TV and say, we're saving women from themselves, basically, was the narrative. You can't take this thing. You can't take hormone therapy. It's not the answer. It's not the fountain of youth. It's actually going to kill you. So that they could then disempower women systemically within their body so that they could disengage, just like your article, bringing it back to your article, even to now, so that women were doing their best to be at their best, because this is when we are sort of at our professional, most experienced, most talented. But they were, sort of blindsided by the fact that now all the help they were getting from these hormones that were all the rage up until this point were now going to kill them. I mean, that's a wild thing that happened. So that's 23 years of this. Can you even fathom that?
Well, it's funny because as you're saying this, I'm thinking about how there's a real parallel to the Iraq War there, because the premise for the Iraq War and how the U.S. was going to be the heroes was that, we are going to liberate women from under this really, misogynist regime, which was, of course, bullshit. When have they ever cared about women? But,
I know, right.
It was very transparent from the start. But I feel like, there's a parallel there. I mean, the Bush administration in general was a real war on women. And that was when the war on science started, the war on facts, all of that really started during that era. So it actually doesn't surprise me. I mean, it probably wouldn't have surprised me in any decade, but especially at that time, because it was such a heated, the things that were happening just hit on all of the all of the really the hot spots, the usual things, gender and power, and being sort of autonomous and having information and having control. All of that was that was it was,
they didn't want it for us anymore.
Right. It was starting to seem like, oh no, this is too much. The ladies have too much I was like,
They wanted
ladies.
to take us down a peg.
Yep. Yeah.
Or 20. I mean, it's fun. It just makes me so mad. I have to be honest. Like, this is why I'm now dedicating my life to exposing all of this bullshit, because I'm just angry. Like, we were on track to take over the world,
Yeah.
to be in politics, to be in control. We all were like, oh yeah, we can all be president. I mean, we saw what was going on. It was clear the trajectory was more power for women. It wasn't taking power away from women. But boy, I feel like there's just a bunch of creepy, nefarious assholes in a room being like, how can we do this?
Well, it's
And
so,
what a way to
yeah.
do it.
It's just interesting because I think there's always been this zero sum like supposition that like as women get more powerful, that means men get less powerful. And in fact, that hasn't really borne out. Like what has happened, there's a lot of research behind this, that when companies are more equitably split, when boards are more equitably split, when certain professions become more equitable in terms of who is doing those professions, they get better. You know what I mean? Things get better. The economy gets better.
Yeah. Yep.
And so much of what has been happening is really this idea of like, oh no, these are people who will absolutely tank the economy and kill people because they are so terrified of what it looks like when women have anything approaching the same level of power. Because it's like it's never approached that. It's never been. It's so fascinating to me because a lot of people will be like, feminism was fine, but it went too far when it started to be about female supremacy. And I'm like, where did that happen? Where exactly did that happen? And
when did we have the chance to be supreme? I'd like to know.
I think a lot of I was talking about this morning with another writer, like the Me Too movement put so much fear into men, and that was what they saw as like, oh no, things have gotten too feminized, it's overreach, women are running the joint, we can't have this. And so so much of what is going on now is really tied to that, because the idea that men should have to be held accountable for anything or change their behavior in any way or contribute to making workplaces like better for everyone. That was an absolute travesty for a lot of people. And I include women in that, because there are definitely women who are like, oh yeah, I think, I miss the romance of being flirted with at work or whatever, there's a real sense of like, oh, feminism and equality and these efforts have just killed, the mystique of heterosexual romance or whatever. It's very stupid, but it's like people have become stupider and like, I don't think that's, I mean, I definitely like include myself in that group. Like we're all becoming stupider, but the problem is that there's so much information that claims to explain this stuff, but does not explain this stuff.
So I want to break it down. I have a theory. This is maybe my conspiracy about a conspiracy. But I really like, because of this film, because I've had to zoom out a lot and start to track the timeline of, feminism and HRT and politics and culture. That's really what I'm doing with this film. I started looking back, and you start to think about, well, when did women get the right to, voting was a long time ago, but having a credit card in their own name, being able to get a mortgage,
all of these things that happened. 1974, I don't think. Like,
and abortion was 1973.
Yeah, totally.
So I look back to Ms. Magazine, speaking of writing and journalism. Ms. Magazine in 1972, I think it was, hit the scene like in a big explosion, and it was like a one-shot deal at first. And they had sent like they did this magazine that really represented like me and you, like the people that were around them. What are these points of view of women who have families, who have jobs? What is sexism? What are these things that we're experiencing? And they really sparked a revolution in 1972 that led to abortion being legal. That feminism led to, women getting credit cards, women getting mortgages, women being able to get their own bank accounts, women being able to do all the things we consider to be normal for Gen X, at least. They all happen, and it tracks between 1972 till the late 90s with sort of the advancement of one thing after the other. And to me, that also tracks with the rise of popularity in hormone therapy, because it really started getting popular in the 60s, and then it kind of went over the edge in the 70s, and women were really all about it. And by, I think, 1993, it was 25% of women were on hormone therapy, and it was prescribed like, diabetes medication or thyroid medication. It wasn't, judged. It wasn't kept behind a locked wall. It was really just a regular thing. Like, oh, you feel hot flashes, here's some hormones. It was not a big deal, right? But that's not the way it is now. So that was kind of, they were coming to this really extreme point of popularity, and things just kept getting better and better for women as that number went from 25% to 30 to 35. Then by 2002, 40%. That's a lot of women feeling fucking great when they used to feel like shit.
Yeah.
It just is. It's a lot. That's a lot. And that means change. That means taking over politics. That means taking over culture. That means being able to make the art that we want to make because we have the energy to do it, and be able to be on the school board or run for that office because we're not just like clinging to the couch with a fan and some fucking ice cubes. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is a different situation. And I also think that, like, that's feminism tracking from, really the 70s till now. But in 2002, that is really when, like you mentioned, the backlash occurred. And suddenly, with the help of the Women's Health Initiative and politicians, they found a very fucking sneaky way to take us down about 50 pegs. And they did. And I think that we now, like, our mothers suffered the most. Really, the boomers are the ones in the crosshairs. And I think we are now suffering because they're suffering, because we're paying for the fucking nursing homes that they're in, because they all have UTIs and dementia, which are both fucking from hormone deficiency. They do. It's been proven.
It's
funny. And now it's known.
My mother did have hormone replacement, but like, she also suffered from dementia and UTIs like crazy at the end of her life.
It's wild.
And I never really thought about it until I read that. And I was like, oh. And I don't remember, like, maybe she did stop taking the hormone replacement at some point. I'm not really sure. She's not here anymore, so I can't ask her. But
I'd be curious to know. I mean, that is pretty typical. Most women were taken off it unless they knew somebody or had one particular doctor that had a different opinion or were willing to advocate for themselves to kind of deal with the risk of it.
Yeah.
But most people were taken off. And now we know that Alzheimer's and dementia are all women's diseases. The majority of people that get them are women, and that you get them in midlife, and now they're connecting it to hormonal deficiency, but it manifests later in life when the brain has now eaten itself back to that, to this point where you can't really control it, and the parts of your brain that were the juiciest, memory and personality are gone because there's nothing there to lubricate it to make it healthy again. So that's a big problem. So we're dealing with the boomers in fucking nursing homes paying for that, depleting us of money. At the same time, so many Gen Xers without hormone therapy are being told no by their doctors, are being pushed away from it in 8,000 different ways. I mean, it's just so much chaos on the internet. So we're just, we're in this unique position, I think, with Gen X to take stock of what's been going on and why we're feeling this way. And, like I've had lots of stoner moments where I wonder, like, am I destroying my brain? But then once I started taking hormones, I was like, oh no, it's not cannabis at all. This is way bigger than that. Cannabis is just going to make you feel you're gonna be a little nicer or a little less nice with the cannabis, is my opinion. Like, it makes me into a slightly nicer person. But your actual physical well-being isn't going to change with cannabis, right? Like, it's not going to change. You're going to feel less miserable or slightly, whatever. But like, you have to deal with what's systemic first. And, you look at what's happening now with like Project 2025 and all these like nightmares that clearly have been in planning for 20, 30 years. And to me, it's just absolutely no surprise that systemically disempowering women has been a part of that plan since 2002.
Oh, it's been a part of the plan since way before that. I mean,
true.
But
true.
But it's true that like that was something that they could grab onto and be like, here's another route in there. And I think,
effective.
Especially there is a huge, whatever, we know that there's been globally across cultures, there's been the fear of like the elderly woman, the crone,
God.
the
Yeah.
witch,
Yeah.
the person, the woman who has lost value for men because she's no longer capable of childbirth and she's no longer fuckable. Like that is a terrifying specter.
Invisibility.
But it's not
Yep.
even invisibility. It's like the idea that they might still have any sort of influence on the culture at large or the society at large. I mean, this goes back to like the witch trials when it was about like
100%.
middle-aged, midwives. There really is that sense that older women are a force that can't be controlled if if the patriarchy like exactly, there really is this. And
Like a witch.
that's why I always thought like at the women's march, I always feel like the pussy hats were a choice, but I feel like it really should have been more like witches hats and just like robes, like really scare the shit out of people with the iconography that they're already terrified about. And I
I like it.
absolutely think that being vocal, being loud about what was done in terms of taking away these medications from women is super important because A, people don't know about it, and B, we should have the knowledge. Like we should be able to choose. We should have all the information available to us, even if some people don't choose to use it for whatever reason. There's no excuse to not have any of that. And yeah, so that's my rant.
I love your rant. I think it's a fucking crime, is what I think it is. And I think it's thoroughly immoral what's happened. I actually talked to this awesome man named Dr. Wolf Utian, who founded the North American Menopause Society. And I was like, how do you feel about this? Like, he's like, because he's written papers. I found him because he, in 2013, wrote an article. I think it's even in the NIH or something. I can't remember which very legit medical magazine. But he's like, calling for an independent investigation into the WHI. So like people have known that this was bullshit for a long time. The problem is that the narrative hasn't changed because the fear is still permeating women's realities, the fear of breast cancer, and honestly, like the PR.
Yeah.
The bad PR, the bad storytelling's out there. But this guy, Dr. Wolf Utian, I was like, how do you feel? He goes, well, I think it's immoral and I think it's criminal. And I think women have been violated without their knowledge for, at least in this circumstance, the last 23 years. And they don't even know like how good they could be feeling. They don't know that there's really like not only an answer, like the drugs have gotten better. Like bioidentical hormones are now what everybody goes to. And before it wasn't. They were available apparently because they were made in the 60s, but they now have become the way to go because they offer so little risk for the vast majority of women. Yet we get confronted with misinformation and total bullshit every day. And part of that, I think, is because menopause is big money. There's going to be 1 billion women in menopause by 2030, and everybody wants him. Queen fucking Latifah is shilling for Weight Watchers. We've got Oprah shilling for Oprah, trying to sell every supplement. And kind of the biggest bummer for so many of my friends and for myself, when you're miserable on the couch and you're getting fed fucking, shit from the algorithm, half of it is really someone trying to sell you something that's going to kind of, alleviate your suffering, but it's not actually what's going to fix it systemically.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be,
yeah.
It's just like everyone wants to make a buck. So we're in this position where like how many, like 1 billion women, the vast majority are raw dogging fucking menopause and perimenopause. And we're buying all these things to feel better, whether it's like, a thing for our face or a fan or there's a million different things that they're trying to sell us, clothes, quick wicking, blah, blah, blah. Like this is what we need. But like, it's just so ironic to me that like, the thing that could fix the most is actually the simplest and is based on what is in our body, and things that we think are not fixable, like hip pain and joint pain. Like I have friends who are not hormonally optimized, who are getting knee replacements, who are getting hip replacements in their fucking 50s, in their 40s. And it's just like, whoa, 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 whoa. And there's so many women getting hysterectomies because there's just so little knowledge about fibroids and how that interacts with HRT and what can help and what can not help. Like, women are getting cut into, they're getting chopped up. Like, we're suffering constantly because of this lack of information. And I'm so over it, Andi.
I'm over it too. I mean, one of my brothers is an OBGYN, and I mean, he mostly works with high risk pregnant women. But, in terms of like what amount of energy and resources are put into women's reproductive health post reproductive years, there's nothing. I think, my personal theory about why there was this real boom in HRT in like the 70s and 80s was because of the technology, because it was exciting, because it was a scientific breakthrough. Um, Now women just started feeling too good. But I really think it's like, well, we can do this thing. And then
the appeal.
Yeah. The appeal of it. Or like, that was money, that was research, that was journal articles. Like there was a lot of upside to it. And apparently the one downside was that it actually worked for
it worked.
Totally.
Oops, sorry. You gave us the keys to the car, motherfuckers, and now we're gonna drive it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that was the downside, more power, right? And there we were, like poised to really do all of it, and then we got really cut off at the pass. I mean, it just breaks my heart. And I feel like, there's still so many women suffering. It's not like this is done. I mean, people be like, oh, there's too many podcasts about this. There's too many articles. There's not. I want to be in a situation where it's an embarrassment of riches of information, right, knowledge, and access. That's where I want to be. That's where we should all be. But we're not there. We're not even close. Like for every friend I know that's like made the transition into researching and having access to hormones, there's another friend like you who has not, who is still suffering and wishes they felt better. And I don't know why, they haven't had the chance to look into it or figure it out for themselves, or being told no by their doctors, which is pretty typical. So like, I'm really interested in creating tools for self-advocacy for folks and trying to give people a new baseline of truth about HRT and about women's health, because after the Women's Health Initiative and the fact that quote unquote hormones were going to kill you, it erased midlife care for women basically for the next over 2 decades. It went away. So like you said, your brother, maybe they had an hour-long seminar on menopause, an hour, but the reality is perimenopause starts at like 35. So from women's lives from 35 to we're living into our 90s now. So like 2/3 of our lives, 2/3.
Yeah.
2/3 are spent in this hormone deficient state. And there's like an hour of education in like an 8-year, 10-year fucking college situation. Like what?
Yeah. Well, it's also, I mean, there's also these sort of physical, and I don't want to like say everything is just a grift, but like when you think about the way certain medical interventions like vaginal mesh have become really big, it's because women aren't having HRT, and so they are more likely to have prolapse. They are more likely to have pelvic floor dysfunction.
Depression,
yeah.
A million other things.
Absolutely.
High cholesterol.
Yeah, but it's like
disease.
all of that is a gold mine for particular industries. And again, like it sounds like very conspiracy theory, but I think we know how much commerce is put above people, how much profit is put above people. It's funny. There's this terrible new show on TV called All's Fair. It's a Ryan Murphy show. Kim Kardashian's in it, which is insane because like the other women in it are like amazing. But Naomi Watts is in it, and Naomi Watts started like she founded like some sort of menopause skincare sort of thing. And there's this whole section in like the 3rd episode where she's talking about what she does to, like, the character is talking about what she does to like relieve pain or have treatments or whatever. And it's very like, there's like a PSA aspect to it. And I fully expected there to be like product placement because it would have made
You're like, here.
Totally. Yeah, I mean,
Vaginal estrogen cream
maybe that'll
by,
still happen. I don't know.
I mean, that, so, I mean, I appreciate that these celebrities are getting into it. Naomi Watts and Halle Berry and all these folks, Queen Latifah. I think the more people can at least talk about it being a relevant issue, the better. At the same time, Gen X is a little different. We don't really want to be sold to, marketed to. We don't. And certainly Naomi Watts is not going to move the needle for us. And even Oprah had a giant menopause special. Did it move any needle? No. Like, people maybe who watched Oprah cared for 5 seconds, but it hasn't. Even a recent FDA panel on like the horrible black box warning that's on vaginal estrogen, that's on all hormones, that shouldn't be there. It's actually from the WHI. It's false information. That is still there, right? Like, so we have a long way to go is really the problem here. And, you know, I'm glad that those guys are all doing what they're doing, but the needle hasn't been moved, and they're still trying to sell us shit we don't fucking need, because when hormones were off the table, SSRIs became massive. That was when Prozac was huge in the 2000s, remember? That was when statins came into play, right? For cholesterol and for all this other stuff. So like, these are all things that naturally bioidentical HRT decreases. Like, it does all the things you want it to do. It does skin stuff, it does brain stuff. But instead we have 1,000 products that we are marketed constantly, and now more than ever with the fucking algorithms and internet, to buy to fix this misery. But the irony is, and I can speak from being on the other side, I don't have any of those problems anymore. I don't need any of those things. That huge pile of stuff that I bought before that was just like helping me get through the night, helping me get through the day, I haven't touched it in months, years. Now it's crazy. So wait a second, you know, like, we don't have to suffer. I think that's another conversation, because Gen X, I mean, and just women in general, there's a whole sort of culture of suffering where we define ourselves by suffering, which is part of even starting with our periods. You know, it's wild.
Yeah, I absolutely think that is very much at play here. It's like we're used to it and we internalize it, and it's been normalized for so long. You know, like, just the idea that like being a woman is one sort of constant gauntlet after the other.
Yeah.
And
I can take it. I can take it. I can take
exactly.
it. Like, I can handle the pain. No, motherfuckers, let me just feel good. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, there's really so much to that, but I do think that's one of the reasons why, like, just knowledge, just resources, ways to disseminate knowledge so that everyone has access to it, and not because they look for it, because it's everywhere. The same way like men had access to Viagra because it became something that was advertised every fucking where you looked. So, yeah, I mean, it's, again, like, so much of this is going to depend on just like sort of systemic factors, uh, material support, material resources, financial support. And unfortunately, so much of what we see in terms of like investing in women over the last decade or two has really been about products. So
it is kind of wild, but I do feel like there's a path, and I have a theory, and this is why I'm making this film. And I don't, you know, it's not a conspiracy, it's just a theory. Part of it is that it has to start with pop culture.
Yes.
Because I believe that nothing's gonna fucking change. Even if you enshrine it into the Constitution, it's not gonna change. It's only gonna change if pop culture forces it to change. And that is women who are engaged and wanting it to change are making it change. And that means that movies like MENOPUNKS and other things, even that horrible show, are talking about menopause, right? Like, it's becoming part of the cultural conversation, because Gen X, you know what, we're pop culture people, right? Like, we grew up with it. We helped create it, really. We were it. We were the people that was marketed to. We were the ones who were making it in the 90s, you know? And so now we are deeply ensconced in pop culture, and we're not going to believe it unless it's a fucking tidal wave of information and wanting what they've got, right? Like, well, if I can feel this good, don't you want to feel this good, Andi? Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how Gen X functions. And so I really think it's going to be pop culture. And that is why I'm making Menopunks, because we have a chance to really completely shift this. I want Menopunks to be the Ms. Magazine of the 70s, but in this era. And I want there to be more than just Menopunks. I don't think we're the
Right.
only one. But I want this film, with the help of musicians and incredible pop culture folks, writers, musicians, artists, people who are really in the culture, talking about it themselves. Miranda July is a great example. That her book, All Four, is hugely influential within my friend group.
Huge.
Suddenly
Yeah.
people are having conversations about perimenopause when none of us were. Like, thank you, Miranda. But she didn't really offer a solution. She just talked about, well, here's what it is. And now I know what's going on with myself, which is so phenomenal, right? And that's something we can all relate to. But I really want there to be a change, because we're all shoulder to shoulder fucking forcing it. And that's like me standing next to Corin Tucker and Jody Bliley and Kathy Foster and Gilly Hanner and Jen SBRAGIA. And now I'm about to interview Nico Case, and I've got like Allison from Bratmobile, and we're talking to Sarah Lund from Unwound, and I'm trying for another 50 people I'm fucking obsessed with. This is my bucket list project, obviously. But if we can do it together, which we are doing it together, because this project may be mine in the sense that my name's on it, but it's not. Jody Bliley is all about this, and Corin's all about this. Like, they want this to happen because it affects us all.
Oh, absolutely.
So I feel like it's a movement, right? It's us together calling for change and not just accepting things the way they are, because now we know there's a motherfucking hack to having a better quality of life, and it was taken away from us, and the information was obscured and made into something else because they wanted us to be fucking miserable so that they could destroy the world right now.
And yeah, to
bring
sell,
it all together,
to sell us things. I mean, don't underestimate the amount of commerce that goes into making decisions like that. But no, I mean, I'm so glad you're doing it, and I agree. It's like, this has always been true, and part of what made Ms. Magazine great is because it recognized that, like, you can change policy, you can change law, but it's really in the stories. It's really in the personal narratives. It's in the things that people want to see, not the things that feel like homework to them. So absolutely, like, yeah. Do I think this new Ryan Murphy show is absolutely like a hate watch? Yes, it is.
But
at the same time, it's like, if that is going to lead to more shows that are, sort of really grappling with this. I mean, there have been. Did you ever watch Better Things?
Oh God, I love Pamela Adlon.
Exactly.
She brought it up. It comes up. I think that. Yeah, I think it's there, but I don't know what it is. There's never been a movie like this, right?
Right.
Not that really harnessed pop culture to like expose a crime. There have been movies like that, but to harness pop culture to expose a crime in women's health, specifically with menopause, right? And HRT, that's a new thing. And that's going to help. But like, I mean, I am optimistic. I really feel like, if we can together with, everybody from Gen X kind of, can kind of get the picture and really talk about it. And we can kind of harness this energy and this momentum that we're kind of bringing up from nothing right now with Gen X, really only the past 2 or 3 years. I think it can change. I think it has to change, actually, because we're looking at a system that obviously is so broken from the inside out and was sort of taking care of us, but really wasn't. Because if things were, I mean, even under Biden and Obama, things were fucked. I mean, things weren't better for us. It was still misinformation. Nothing was changing, even though people were calling for investigations. It was nothing. But we have to demand change. It's up to us. And we're going to do it. I mean, this horrible nightmare we're in is not going to stay forever. We're already seeing the tides turn, and we're already seeing them talk about how they're going to go to jail. And boy, do I love that. But, but I mean, exciting. Maybe we're going to be the ones who get to rebuild everything. And that's kind of what I'm banking on with trying to inform women and give them, the tools they need to feel better. Whether or not they choose to use them is up to them. But at least if we can reset the baseline for truth about these, incredible bioidentical therapies that can actually give us ourselves back and maybe want us to be on the school board or whatever, then things can change.
Right. Yeah.
And then we can really be a part of it.
Energy is a big part of it. Like, having the energy to devote to things like politics is huge, because I know I don't have enough of it,
Well, let's talk about you for a second. So as we get towards the end of our conversation, tell me about your hormonal journey in terms of where are you going next? What do you see for yourself? Because you still are kind of feeling crappy, but what do you see for
Yeah.
yourself?
I mean, because the brain fog has been my main symptom, and because I haven't had a ton of other symptoms, like I haven't really had, I mean, I'm knocking on wood right now as I say this. I haven't had a ton of sleep disruption. I haven't had a ton of hot flashes. I haven't had a ton of joint pain. All of this stuff has been fairly mild. Uh, but the brain fog is so intense that I do feel like that is the thing that's getting me to a point where it's like I have to go and have my hormone levels tested. Um, just, again, like even if it's not as bad as I think it is, I want the
Yeah.
information. I want to know as much as I can know.
Well, and here's the thing that I will posit to you that I think is super important for you and every other woman who thinks that HRT is just going to help with their symptoms. It will, but there's other stuff that it helps with even more, like bone health, for
Mm,
example. Without the hormones that are in our body, our bones fall apart. This is why osteoporosis and osteopenia are so common in women in their 50s and 60s, and it starts in your 40s. It's a
mm,
whole fucking thing.
yeah.
So that's one thing. Your brain, it starts now, it's going to not get better, Andi. It's just going to get worse. It's down to your heart health. It's down to even weight. It's down to your skin and your complexion, the color of your fucking cheeks. Like it goes all the way through your body. So, the energy which you suffer from is also a massive part of it. And like, I'm back to being my whirling dervish self when I was fucking miserable. So like, I think once you start to get into the rabbit hole and start to really sort of radicalize yourself with this actual knowledge and not the bullshit, I think you'll see that all the preventative things are really as important, if not more important, than the symptomatic benefits, because this is what's going to help you live longer and age better. And like, it'll have your body treating you like a human again. You'll feel like yourself. And so if brain fog's the thing that's going to get you there, God bless that fucking brain fog, because I want to see what happens when Andi is fully like, 1,000% powered again. And maybe we can talk after that. And the one other thing I want to mention is that a lot of the doctors I talk to say that you can get your levels checked, do that. But also a lot of the menopause specialists say it's really about symptoms. So if you're having any symptoms and you are in the right age range, you should be able to get a prescription for hormones. It shouldn't be about putting you through a blood test. It shouldn't be about like any hoops at all. It should be about, oh, you feel that and you're this, okay, yeah, have some fucking hormones. And they're mostly starting people on pretty low doses, which is also because of the WHI, out of caution, though most of these bioidentical therapies really, they don't need to be so cautious about. For me, I started at 0.05 on estradiol, but I'm talking to some of my menopause specialists who are part of the podcast and the film, and they're like, oh, we start people on 1 milligram or 2 milligrams. And I was like, oh my God, like it took me 2 years to go from 0.05 to 1 milligram. What was I doing? And I've done a lot of self-titrating where they start me on a low amount and I'm like, I still feel like shit. I'm going to give myself another half a pill. And then it works for 2 months and I still feel crappy again. And then I take another and then I'm like, oh, okay, this is where I'm good. And in reverse, I tell them where I'm at and they're like, oh, we're glad you feel better. Let's change your prescription. It's actually less liability for them
Oh
to
yeah,
do it that way.
absolutely. Yeah.
So food for thought, freebase the shit now and tell them later.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I hope that you are able to find some relief soon, Andi. I really, I'm so excited that we're chatting, and I know we've talked about you being in the film, which I think is so exciting, and I want to have you come into that fold and talk about all of this as well. But is there any question you want to ask before we say goodbye?
I
Anything you're
don't
curious
think
about?
so. I don't think so. This was really fun. Again, like tons to think about and sort of integrate into my plans going forward. So I really appreciate talking to you. I think what you're doing is amazing.
Oh, I love that. Well, I think, Andi, I would like you to start a revolution with me. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, if I can get out of bed, absolutely, I will be there. Right now, I have to take
Okay.
my kid to the DMV, but like, yeah, absolutely, when I've got some time.
All right, when you're feeling better, you have your energy and your brain back, maybe you would consider starting a hormonal revolution with
Yes,
me.
I will absolutely be there. And I will, I'll be there, but I'll also be cheering everyone on. because I want.
As you should be, as we all will be. Well, thank you so much, Andi. You're just the best. Thank you for joining Menopunks. We'll talk to you again soon. And
all right.
Honestly, you're fucking awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Bye.
Are you a Menopunk? For more information about the movie, the Menopunks movement, Menopunks merchandise, and more, go to www.menopunks.com.